Welcome back to Steven. I'm currently trying to figure out if writing LOL in messages makes me sound out of touch. And today, from somehow smelling like they work somewhere to a Karen screwing her car up, we've got an hour of wild Karen encounters, all starting with a post titled, "My girlfriend is a Karen towards retail workers and waitstaff, and it's really hurting our relationship. I'm 28-year-old male, she's 28-year-old female." Original post, January 8th, 2021. First of all, I wish there was a better way to express the title. I know some people will take issue with the Karen meme, but this was the easiest way to succinctly summarize the issue. My girlfriend and I have been together for 2 years. She's great. Friendly, considerate, funny, smart, and our intimate life is great. I can think of no major issues in our relationship except for one. Whenever there is even the smallest hiccup while we're shopping, eating out, or on the phone with a customer service rep, my girlfriend snaps through this bizarre Jekyll and Hyde transformation and becomes a complete ruthless, unrelenting Karen. Sometimes there doesn't even need to be a hiccup. She just escalates out of nowhere, and it happens without fail. This had happened many times, but I'll provide 2 brief examples. The first, she needed to return an item that was defective. So we went to the customer service desk. She didn't have a receipt, so the money would have to come back on a store gift card. No big deal for me, but for her, it may as well have been a scandalous assault on her rights as a consumer. She insisted, in a rude and condescending tone of voice, that she would not accept a store credit. It needed to be cash plus $5 for pain and suffering? I stood there speechless as she screamed at the customer service manager, said she would call corporate and have them all fired, etc. Finally, she was asked to leave, and loss prevention came to escort us out. I had to physically pull her along to get her out before it became a police issue. Second example, we went out to eat at a restaurant. She likes her burger well done. There was a trace of pink in the middle. No biggie, just send it back, right? Not for her. She rebutted the waitress's offer to get her a new burger, said she was not going to wait, and wanted our whole meal comped. This led to the manager coming out, who offered to comp her half of the meal. She became incensed and started screaming again. When the manager refused to comp the whole meal, she flew from her seat, swept a stack of napkins off the table, and declared she was never eating at this establishment again. I followed her out, still hungry, in stunned silence. I became even more stunned when she angrily connived in the car to claim that she had found an insect in her food and doxed the manager on social media. I literally do not recognize this vile woman. In literally every other situation in life, even stressful ones, she's perfectly ordinary. But as soon as she expects a service and does not get absolute perfection, she acts as though she's been confronted with a cosmic injustice. I am disgusted by the way she talks to service workers. She acts like they're worthless pieces of crap. We've talked about it, of course. I've noticed she immediately turns to me and begins trying to rationalize her escalations. That was ridiculous, right? How can a business treat their customers like that? Do you think I was too harsh? And I've always responded the same way. I would not have reacted like that because I didn't think it was a big deal. I've never gone farther than that because I have a bad feeling about the outcome if I did. I have so much anxiety about taking her out to eat, and I've avoided doing so specifically because of her outrageous behavior. COVID has been a lifesaver in this regard, but I can't keep dodging these situations and restricting my life because of my girlfriend's behavior. Frankly, this has even started to hurt our intimate life. I'm not as attracted to her as I once was, specifically because I'm horrified and embarrassed by her public meltdowns. And I don't understand how one specific situation can be so triggering for an otherwise normal person. It seems like, as soon as we walk into a store or restaurant, she's already decided that the staff is her enemy. Just today, she yelled at a poor call center worker because one of our packages was late. I'm at a loss as to how to approach this. Again, it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I feel like I would be talking about a whole different person if I brought this up while she was in her normal state, but I know I have to address it somehow. We've discussed getting engaged in the future, and this issue is affecting other areas of our relationship. How do I approach this? So, jumping in here to say, I know it's a real faux pas to try to do any kind of diagnosing per se, but I feel like this is one of those situations where you're going to have people in the comments saying, oh, she must have this thing or that thing. And I can't lie that I'm kind of curious if maybe that is the case here. But obviously, I'm just a guy that reads Reddit stories. I'm not a psychologist. A user named The Last Bassilope left a comment saying, if you want to know who someone is, watch how they treat those in-service positions. Your girlfriend is great, friendly, funny, etc. to you because she considers you her equal. How she treats those other people, that is the core of who she is. And deep down, you already know that. It's why you haven't addressed it with her, because you know she will turn on you and you will be on the receiving end of her crappy treatment. Another user named Snowmuffins left a comment saying, I've never gone farther than that because I have a bad feeling about the outcome if I did. Don't date someone you're afraid of. It's really that simple. She's not great and friendly. She's a crappy person. You know how I know? Because great, friendly people don't act this way ever. So you're dating a jerk. And you're just lucky that so far only service workers have set her off, not you. But you know it could be you, which is why you're afraid to confront her about it. So like I say, don't date someone you're afraid of. 3 options: confront her and hopefully resolve it, confront her and get dumped or back down and cower, or don't ever mention it. Hope she never turns on you and hate public interactions with her forever. Up to you. The OP then went on to post an update 5 days later on January 13th. Well, I took everyone's advice. I sat my girlfriend down and had a frank discussion. I suspected I would, but it's nice to get some independent input. It wasn't too dramatic. I laid out a few examples of my girlfriend's previous behavior to her, told her it made me feel less attracted to her, told her I was avoiding restaurants because of her, and explained that I couldn't see myself marrying a woman who behaved like this. She got defensive at first. Then she cried. We talked for a little bit about her upbringing. She grew up with a very stern, controlling mother. She's agreed to go to counseling to work on this. She also promised to remain silent when she was angry at staff and let me do all the talking in the meantime. So that's really it for now. It seems that she's finally owning her behavior and is willing to work on it. Thank you to the Redditors who offered validation and advice. To the Redditors who told me my girlfriend is an awful jerk and I should break up immediately. I'm not sure what you think you're adding to the discussion, but it doesn't strike me as a healthy way to maintain a long-term relationship. I hope everyone has a good day. So unfortunately, in the around 5 years since this post came out, the OP never posted another update. So we can only kind of speculate on whether or not it truly worked out. But hey, at least it seemed like they were willing to acknowledge there was a problem. And that's, from what I've heard, the first step to getting help, right? I'll be honest, Karen or not, I kind of hope it did work out for them. A user named Queen Cheetah left a comment saying, while I hope counseling helps her personally, I'm still not totally convinced that this relationship is worth saving. She's made it clear that she's willing to lie and risk someone's job just because they wouldn't cater to her insane whims. Imagine what she'll do if OP ever tries to break up with her. And speaking of things that would help people personally, if you wanted to help me personally in the best way, it would be amazing if you could hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. Our next story is, you smell like you work, so you must work here. So, I'm the pitmaster at a local barbecue restaurant. Uniform is black pants and either a black or gray t-shirt with a restaurant name on the front. After work, I often stop by Walmart to go grocery shopping as it's on my way home. Well, one day while I was in the bakery getting hoagie rolls for dinner, she appears. Now, she had the typical Karen look, and she looked mad, and she spotted me. She opened up with, "Finally, someone who freaking works here." I of course ignored her and kept on with my shopping. Well, she didn't like that and rammed her cart into mine and started yelling, "Don't you freaking ignore me, you lazy freak. I need you to get me a freaking cake decorated." I looked up at her, looked down at my black t-shirt with a restaurant name that is very distinct from Walmart, looked back up at her, looked down at my shirt, said, "I don't work here," and then I pulled my cart away and turned to leave. She kept yelling, "Yes you do, you smell like you work here," and grabbed my arm. I pushed her off me and told her to freak off, lady. I don't work here. It's not my fault you're too freaking stupid to read my shirt or know that employees here wear a blue vest. She started following, yelling obscenities at me until the manager came over to see what was going on. She, of course, demanded that I be fired, to which the manager replied that I didn't work there. And then they started going back and forth on it. The manager waved me away, so I went back to shopping. A little while later, I'm getting ready to check out and I see her still standing in the bakery yelling at the manager about how I pushed her, I needed to be fired, I was rude, and so forth. At this point, I see 2 police officers come in, they have a quick chat with the manager, and escorted her out of the building. She was screaming about suing the whole time. Not a story about a Karen getting up close and personal and using their sniffer to identify whether or not you work there. I feel like at this point, I almost have to go down the list and see if I can collect a Thanos collection of wild I don't work here lady stories where they use one of every different sense to identify whether or not somebody works somewhere. Obviously, we already got eyes and now we got smell. I'm going to be very fearful of trying to find one that fits taste, but maybe one day we'll get there. A user named Slow is Smooth commented, "Well, to be fair, I'm sure you smell amazing. She wanted to bask in your aura." Another user named Rude Pomegranate left a comment saying, "The icing on her cake would have been telling the police that you were assaulted and you wanted to push the issue. I'm sure the store's cameras probably caught her." VOP responded, "I thought about it, but I didn't want to talk to the police. Probably should have, but..." Our next story is, "Karen, do you know who I am?" Me, "No. Tell us." "My husband is..." Me, "That's your husband. Tell us who you are." This happened on Thursday, but I forgot to post this. So I, 27-year-old male, was walking to the metro when I saw a guy getting harassed by this short woman. This is what I can remember them saying, translated from Dutch. The man said, "You've been following me since we were in the local supermarket. What's wrong with you?" The woman yelling, "How rude! Do you know who I am?" And me blurting out, "Why don't you tell us?" At that moment, I know I might have messed up. Both are now looking at me. The woman yelling in an insulted tone said, "My husband is..." insert name I don't remember. "He is a famous accountant at insert company name." Me, having given up on escaping, said, "That's who your husband is. Who are you?" The woman replied, "My husband got a promotion last month because he helped." Me, cutting her off, replied, "That's what your husband has done. Who are you, and what important thing have you done?" The man, now grinning, said, "Yeah, tell us, wappy," the Dutch word for Karen. The woman, now red-faced, was stammering, now unable to come up with something. I then asked, "Could it be that you have done nothing important?" The woman responded, "Let me think for a second." She then started to think and slowly turned pale. I asked the same question again, "Who are you and what important thing have you done?" Without an answer, the woman left, having a pale face. I then said sorry to the man for not minding my own business, but he said that it was okay and thanked me. I still wonder who she was and what she had done that made her so important. So, did anybody else hear the story and hear their own mental thoughts kind of escaping? I wake up, roll out of bed at 1 p.m., look at my mug in the mirror, and I ask myself, who are you? What have you done? Perhaps I also need to agree to go to counseling. A user named Dirty Steve W commented, "Famous accountant. There's my oxymoron of the day." A user named Play Nice Play Crazy responded, "As an accountant, I find this statement highly accurate." Our next story is Karen at the supermarket. In Australia, if it makes any difference to you, a few weeks ago, I'm at the dip section of my local Colesworth supermarket. There are 2 middle-aged women just a couple of steps to my right. They're being somewhat obnoxious in positioning themselves, so they're hard to get around and are having a "I haven't seen you in so long" screech fest. But they're not really impeding me, so I pay them no mind. I step into the fridge to get a better look at the dips. I'm under fairly specific instructions from the wife as to what she wants. One woman has a trolley, which would have been in my way, but she sees where I'm wanting to be and, amazingly enough, moves it. All of about 3 inches though, so I end up with virtually no gap between it and my hip. But it's the lead up to Christmas and I'm trying to be zen about the whole thing. Importantly, the trolley ends up aimed directly at me. I pick out one dip and start looking for a second. Wifely instructions, remember. Suddenly, the woman's trolley hits me. Gently, there wouldn't be a bruise because it was all of 3 inches away, but on sheer reflex, I bat it away with my hand. I do this all with the force of patting a cat, so the trolley moves back 2 inches. Then what has just happened comes into focus. The Karen actually pushed her trolley into me. I'm surprised as heck and turn toward her, expecting her to apologize. Oh, of course not. "You hit me with that," she exclaims. "What?" "You pushed it into me," I retort, drawing myself up to my full height. "You had gotten what you wanted, and I thought you were moving." "Well, I didn't move, did I? So you pushed your trolley into me." My voice is increasing in volume because this is some bull crap. The trolley had moved gently 3 inches forward and back, but freak me, she pushed it into me and thought I was to blame. The Karen's acquaintance is looking horrified at being caught in the middle of this and makes some attempt to calm us both down, but I'm not having it and neither is Karen. We've had a freaking trolley pushed into us for God's sake. We have a few more rounds of how each of us came to be pushing the trolley, but she just won't show any scrap of remorse for pushing it into me and wants me to apologize for pushing it back into her. Freak you, Karen. If it hadn't hit me because of you pushing it into me, I wouldn't have touched it, you cow. This completely eludes Karen, who thinks I'm a horrible person for reflexively pushing back at something that got pushed into me. I think I hear her say something about her husband. I'm so riled at this point that I welcome the possibility. Although I'm past 50 and hardly fit. "Go get your husband then," I snap at her. "I don't have a husband," she says. "Not surprising," I snap back. Yeah, this isn't my proudest moment, but I feel she deserves it. A few more back and forth and I've had enough. I've got a life to get on with, so I break contact and just walk away. Karen cannot let it go, of course, and she keeps on at the top of her voice to her friend and random passing shoppers. "He hit me with a trolley," as I continue down the other aisles to get the rest of my shopping. 5 aisles away, an elderly gentleman catches my eye, chuckles and says, "She's still going, you know." Thanks, Karen. I really needed that little interaction. Freak you. So I imagine most people can probably tell by now that I'm kind of picking and choosing from different various subreddits. A little bit of I don't work here lady, a little bit of freak you Karen, a little bit of best of Redditors updates. Gotta say, turns out there are a lot of Karens all over the place. Our next story is, oh, you can take your kids to work? I live in a rural farming town, and this happened at the local feed store. Think like Tractor Supply, but a mom and pop owned version. I went to get my usual stuff, chicken feed, dog food, etc., and had my 5-year-old daughter with me. She's looking at the horse riding equipment as she is dying to start lessons. I walk over and we start discussing what she likes and what she needs to start when a lady comes over and just starts talking about horses. I admittedly know nothing, but assumed she was just an excited fellow equestrian who overheard my daughter and I. Then she starts asking for recommendations on stuff. And I admit I'm not an expert and she might need to ask someone else. This lady gave me the dirtiest look and went on about how employees should be knowledgeable about their products. Completely oblivious to what she was hinting at, I give a polite chuckle and say, "Yeah, the family that owns this place is great. They would be more help than me." She again suggests that employees should be knowledgeable about their products in store and asks me for a specific type of rein. And I again suggested getting someone else as I'm just here with my daughter picking up a few things. She looks down at my daughter and back up at me and says, "I didn't know the feed store doubled as a daycare. You shouldn't be allowed to bring such a small child to work." Absolutely dumbfounded, I say I don't work here and I'm just letting my daughter get her excitement out by looking at the products in the aisle we were in. Again, I suggest asking an actual employee because the family who owns the shop is terrific and has been in business for decades. With a very snotty look, she says, "I know you work here. I've seen you here almost every time I come in. You must be having a day off, but you could at least help me." I ducked out of the conversation to chase my daughter, who wandered off to get checked out. As I'm leaving the store, giving county gossip with a clerk who's a friend of mine, the lady walks up and complains about how unprofessional I am and how, even for a family business, small children shouldn't be allowed to join employees on their shift. The clerk looks at her like she's plumb dumb and tells her, "Our customers are welcome to bring their children in. I don't know why they wouldn't be allowed." The lady still does not get it and just huffs some more about how we're lying to her. I pick up my hat, have it loaded in the truck, and as I'm driving off, this lady flipped me the bird. I'm still confused how someone who frequents the only feed store in the county that's been running for decades and thinks there's some wild conspiracy going on about me working there. Gave me a good chuckle though. My only hypothesis is that she's seen OP at this place before, and so because they've seen OP at this place before, clearly OP must work there too. Oh, this person looks like they know where things are. Must be employed. Our next story is, entitled Mother Tried to Sue Me for Drugging Her Child. I, 19-year-old female, am a server at a restaurant with a bar in it. The bar side of the restaurant is, of course, 21 plus, and anyone who orders an alcoholic beverage is required to show the waiter their ID. The rest of the restaurant, however, is child-friendly. We were serving breakfast, and I was serving a table of two, a young girl who looked about 8 or 9, and her entitled mother. However, this mom is more than entitled, as she will be arrested by the end of this story. I go and take their drink orders after the hostess sits them down. The young girl gets an orange juice while the mother gets a water and a mimosa. I, of course, check the mom's ID and see that she's born in the early 80s, so she's good for a mimosa. I let the bartender know that I need a mimosa to serve, and I work on the orange juice for the child and the mother's water. Once I have all 3 drinks, I serve their table and take their meal orders. Everything seems to be going smoothly until I bring back their meals. As I bring back the plates, the mother screams at me, "You served my child alcohol!" I know for a fact that cannot be true because I'm the one who made the juice and never even went behind the bar where the drinks are. I said, "Ma'am, you must be mistaken. I didn't put any alcohol in the juice, and I had my eyes on it until it reached your table." She said, "Well then smell it." She handed me her child's glass, and it did smell like alcohol. I said, "Once again, I know that I did not put alcohol in your child's drink. Either someone did it while you weren't looking, or you did it yourself. But the juice did not have alcohol before it came to your table." The mom looked at me angrily and demanded to see my manager. "I'm going to sue you for giving my child alcohol. Bring me your manager." I get the manager, and she gets both mine and the mom's side of the story. Security was even alerted because apparently the child had drunk a few sips of the alcohol. My manager, security, and I went and watched the security footage since both me and the mom swore we didn't put alcohol in the juice. Not only did we discover that I was innocent, we saw the mom, as soon as I had placed the glasses down and left, drink half of the child's juice and filled it back up with her mimosa. And then she instructed her child to drink some of it. The mother was arrested for giving her child alcohol and was given a lifetime ban from the restaurant. If she appears again, she will be immediately arrested again. Not how I planned my work morning, but at least it was amusing to watch an entitled mother get what she deserved. Edit, I was informed by someone who spoke to the kid that they didn't even want orange juice and hates orange juice. Her mom told her to order it just so that she could mix the drinks. The child originally wanted chocolate milk. You best believe I made sure she got her chocolate milk. At least we had a happy ending. OP went over and broke out the Nesquik real quick for her. On the serious side of things though, not a very happy ending. I mean, she gets her chocolate milk now, but I hope Dad's still around to come pick her up. A user named Every Disaster commented, "Around here, it's legal to give your child alcohol and even cigarettes as long as you're the one who did it. Are you sure she's not just being trespassed from the property? Or are your laws significantly better there? The OP responded, well, security had to watch the kid until their dad picked her up. I didn't see the mom after they escorted her out of the building, but I think if she was just being trespassed from the property, they would have sent the daughter with her. Other than that, that's all I know about between the mom and police. I hope she was arrested because where I'm from, no one is to give a minor alcohol, even the parents. Also, it would have been one thing to let the kid have a sip, which still isn't legal here, but most people would allow that. But it's another to mix alcohol with a kid's drink in a kid's cup. It's also another thing to blame it on someone else in a way that could risk them losing their job. Our next story is, young man, if you don't take that, I shall become difficult. I went to the grocery store today for some essentials, and tragically they were all healthy picks. Eggs, yogurt, spinach, blech. Managed to make it in and out of the store without any unfortunate run-ins with other people, and while I was walking to my car, I heard an older lady trying to get the attention of a cart wrangler in the parking lot. She was a little ways closer to the store than where I was parked in the same row. She was being ignored by a cart jockey with a full carriage of groceries and an open trunk on her car. Didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what she wanted. So I walked over, made sure the goal was to get the stuff out of the carriage into the SUV, and did it. Took me about 2 minutes. The whole time the lady was thanking me profusely, calling me a nice young man. I'm old enough now that it was flattering rather than condescending. Mid to late 30s, don't rub it in. When all was said and done, and I'd made sure the trunk could close without smushing anything, I grabbed my own groceries, and the lady grabbed my arm to stop me. She was an older white lady, the kind where she didn't look particularly frail, and if she wasn't white and was wearing sandals, I'd be confident she could nail an evading target at 30 yards with footwear of justice. For those confused by footwear of justice, behold, la chancla, as it was quite clear that it was a good idea to stay on this woman's good side. Think matron rather than frail grandma. While I was not okay with being grabbed, she wagged something papery and green in front of me and said, I was going to give it to that boy over there after he helped me, but he apparently couldn't hear me, she said with an eye roll. Rather than try and argue, because again, this was a woman with whom one would not idly freak with, I took the green paper she was waving. It was a $100 bill. I was immediately like, nuh-uh, this yours, take back too much, that sort of thing. And then she gave me a look and said, young man, if you don't take that, I shall become difficult. The urge to cover my ears was so strong. This wasn't because she was shouting shrilly, it was because the last time I heard a woman speak to me in that tone of voice, my earlobe got pinched and I was dragged to the appropriate authority. Rather than argue, because I might have been born at night, it just wasn't last night, I took the money. Right after she released me, I felt something heavy slam into my side, knocking me off balance but not quite tipping me over. Once I recovered my balance and looked at what hit me, which was a cart full of groceries, I saw a woman in her 40s wearing big sunglasses, presumably staring at me from the back of her own SUV. Put this stuff in there, I'm in a hurry, says the woman. She then proceeds to start talking on a cell phone and avoiding eye contact, with every expectation of me doing her bidding. Mind you, I was in black mesh shorts and a navy blue t-shirt. Folks who work for that grocery store wear white button-downs and khaki pants or shorts. It wouldn't have been okay even if I did work at the store. Pretty sure shoving a loaded cart someone's way is assault or something, but the sheer audacity of this woman left me stunned for a moment. My mouth opened and closed a few times, and I was attempting to think of how I was going to handle this particular situation because I've obviously spent a lot of time in the gym, and the Karen didn't. If it escalated, which it probably would have, it would have been a really bad look. But as it so happens, I didn't need to do a thing. The older lady I'd helped previously walks over. The woman trying to avoid looking at me or her groceries finds herself with a face full of matron. Oh, I didn't realize you had both of your hips replaced too, she said brightly. The Karen, flummoxed at the seeming non sequitur, lets her phone drop and just goes, what? Well, that nice young man saw me being ignored by an employee and just asked to help. Such a nice thing to see in this day and age. And mind you, I've had both hips replaced. My doctor would be most upset with me if he found out I was exerting myself that way. When did you get yours replaced? They did mine one at a time a few months back, she said brightly. The Karen replies, I haven't had my hips replaced. I'm kind of just in a hurry. Now, if you wouldn't mind. And she actually tries to turn away. Matron, sickly sweet smile on her face, said, "Oh, so there's nothing wrong with you? You just couldn't be bothered to put your own groceries in your own car? You're simply too good for that kind of thing?" She was on a roll now, and rather than ask that nice young man, gave your cart a push and hit him with it? Just said you were in a hurry? The Karen, well... And yet here we are still. It's taken even longer than it would have if you just done it for yourself, as you're perfectly capable of doing. The Karen started to puff up, "Now you listen," and instantly got deflated by an old-fashioned look. Children prone to misbehavior are quite familiar with it. It is a look that quite clearly communicates, "We are in public, cease, or the consequences will be Old Testament." Seeing it work on a grown-butt adult was a thing to behold. "Young man, please bring that carriage over. I think this nice young lady is ready to put her own groceries in her car." I pushed the carriage over and left it near the two women. "Now you run along. Don't spend all that in one place," she said with a smile. I gave her the Boy Scout salute. I'm not actually a scout, don't tell anyone. Grabbed my bag and beat feet for my own vehicle. The Karen was actually still putting her bags into her car, being supervised by the old lady. I might have cackled. You know, I almost wish I didn't read this story, because OP sharing this story is gonna make me want to scan around a little bit more the next time I get out of the grocery store, hoping that there's some other matron out there willing to give me $100 for, hopefully, putting groceries into their car and nothing else. A user named Suitable South left a comment saying, "I'm 59 as of tomorrow, and I'm still practicing on the look. My grandma had it, and Lord help you if you continued acting up after seeing her employ it. She was a sweetie until you messed with her. All 4 foot 10 inches of her could easily put anyone in their place. I want to be like this when I grow up." The OP replied, "My fiance was that height. It was kind of astonishing how she would tower over me if I freaked up in a big way. Between that and the doom pinch, I learned very quickly not to hide her step stool or put her snacks on the top shelf. The doom pinch is when a specific nerve bundle on the flank is pinched. Doesn't matter how big you are, if the pinch is applied correctly, you will be a ball on the floor immediately." Our next story is entitled "Karen Doesn't Get to Watch Her Football." I've never been a petty person, mostly because I am incapable of confrontation, until this weekend. We were invited by a close friend for an all-expenses weekend on a luxury houseboat that sleeps 20 guests as a celebration for her 60th birthday. We hadn't met a lot of her family members and friends from school days, but everyone on the boat was absolutely lovely, with one exception: the birthday girl's sister-in-law. I have never met a more selfish, entitled whiner in my life, and she was making the trip unpleasant for everyone. On Sunday, she demanded the music, which wasn't loud, to be turned off so she could watch the Liverpool game in the bar and dining area on the TV screen. Some of the guests had gone big game viewing on the small boats, and the rest were in the jacuzzi, chilling, drinking, and laughing. So only entitled Karen was insisting on watching on the upper deck, with volume full blast and denying everyone else, including the birthday girl, the chance to listen to music while chilling. Being an introvert, I was feeling a bit peopled out, so I went to the upper deck to sit on a deck chair and scroll through my phone a little. Imagine my surprise when I unlocked my phone to find that my Android had automatically connected to the Android Smart TV. I should also point out that we had Wi-Fi on the boat, so if someone wanted to watch something that didn't interest the others, they could have easily streamed their program on their phone, allowing everyone else the pleasure of not having to listen to every moment. Again, I'm not a petty person, but when I heard her swear at the very sweet bartender, I just couldn't help myself. Every time something exciting was about to happen in the game, I would simply turn off the TV. Sometimes I would just randomly mute it and everyone on the lower decks could hear her yells of frustration. Turning the TV back on and waiting for the app to start streaming again would take a few minutes each time. I thoroughly ruined her sporting viewing. She spent the evening complaining about the terrible Wi-Fi signal and the useless TV while I tried not to laugh. This morning when we disembarked and Karen had stormed off to her car, annoyed about some other trivial thing, I confessed to the other passengers what I had done. The laughter and appreciation showed me that I wasn't the only one fed up with the irritating woman. Mess with the birthday girl's relaxing weekend, and apparently, I'll find a way to mess with you. You know, I'm a big sports ball fan. I have my own favorites. Never would I go to somebody else's birthday party on a cruise and go, "Hey, can I watch the ball game on the TV upstairs on full blast?" But, to be fair, like OP, I'm also an introvert, so I'm not trying to make anything draw any kind of attention to me. Our next story is, I don't work here, and this isn't a bar. This happened about a year and a half ago, but something came up today that reminded me of it. Throwaway account because I have a strict policy of not posting anything personal on my main. I was at a local grocery chain looking for something for dinner. Their uniform is tan slacks and a branded denim blue button-down short-sleeved shirt. I can't remember what I was wearing, but I can tell you for sure my outfit wasn't even close to that. It's also worth mentioning I had a big pair of over-ear headphones on, listening to some tunes at a way too loud volume. So I'm standing in the middle of the aisle looking for something when a disheveled young man puts himself between me and the food. I distinctly remember he reeked of booze and body spray. His lips start moving, so I take my headphones off. He asks rather loudly, "Where's the beer?" I wanted to get out of this situation quickly, so I just say to him, "Sorry, dude, I don't know. I don't work here." Put my headphones back on and start to walk away. He then rips my headphones off, threw them on the ground, and asked again, rather angrily this time, "Where is the beer?" I paused and thought about just booking it. Dude's obviously crab-faced, angry crab-faced, and escalating. That's a dangerous situation to be in. Instead, I did something stupid and shot back at him with, "I said I don't work here, man. Besides, don't you think you had enough?" And that's when he took a swing at me. Now, in this moment, I had a few things working in my favor. 1, he's drunk. Coordination isn't currently his strong point. 2, this wasn't exactly David versus Goliath. I'm a short guy, so most people are bigger than me, but I'm not scrawny, just average build. But it's not like this guy was 6'20" and made of steel. 3, I've done martial arts for almost 20 years. I'm not some hardcore MMA fighter though. I started as a kid, but I haven't sparred or even been in a dojo in about a decade. I was never award-winning or best in my class, just persistent. I still keep up with my practice at home to keep my form and to stay in shape. But given how long it's been since I've so much as sparred, and how I've never been in a real fight, he and I were both surprised when muscle memory kicked in and he found himself redirected face first into the floor. First time I've ever done that. He gets back up and scoots back a bit and starts yelling about how he's going to sue me and I'll be arrested for assault. If he hadn't drawn any attention before, he certainly has now. I was honestly pretty freaked out myself. I remember he was bleeding from his nose and I think it broke on impact. I was worried with breaking his nose, I was actually going to end up in cuffs. But I wasn't going to run out of the store and flee. So eventually, a manager of some kind showed up and tried to figure out what was happening. I tried to explain while the other guy kept yelling over me. The cops were called and we both end up sitting there for the hour it takes for them to show up. The cops separated us and then asked us and some employees what happened. The manager also took one of them back to what I assume was the office to look at the security footage. They came back sometime later and the cops put the drunk dude in handcuffs and carted him off. I was asked to give a statement explaining again what happened, as well as my phone number for if they need to follow up. Then I was left to go on my way. I never did hear from them again, and after a few weeks of worried waiting, that was the last I thought about it until today. Today, I was back in that same store during my weekly grocery shopping. When I got to the register to check out, there he was. Drunk dude was my cashier. I didn't recognize him, but he recognized me. He was sober, clean-shaven, cleaned up. Just a completely different person. After he confirmed I was who he thought I was, he launched into an apology. I told him it was water under the bridge and I was happy he seems to have bounced back. So we start talking as he rings up my stuff and he explains his alcoholism led him to drop out of college and struggle to hold down a job. He had been spiraling for a year or two before the incident, apparently losing a drunken fight and catching charges for public intoxication and assault were the wake-up call he needed to make changes in his life. He said as soon as he was out of police custody, he checked himself into rehab and joined a support program. The last time he drank was the morning of the day we met. Now he's a year and a half sober and he's even signed up for classes at the local community college. I told him I was really happy for him. I asked him quietly how he managed to convince the place to hire him, given what happened. He said he wouldn't say who, but it helps that someone at corporate happens to be a sponsor. You know, it's actually kind of cool to see how this guy got help from the support group in multiple ways. Clearly managed to get a hold of his life and change it for the better, and ended up kind of networking into a position where they could get a stable job, which from the sounds of things really probably played a big part in making sure they didn't spiral again. Our next story is OG Double Karen Experience. 20 plus years ago, I was a teenager working a beachside snack stand. Was cash only, hot dogs, nachos, candy, slushes, etc. Busy spot, I served hundreds and hundreds of people a day with few issues. I always tried to hook it up where possible, especially on the harder to track things like the prepared food. So in retrospect, I had two middle-aged OG Karens one very busy day. They ordered a small-sized nachos, then came back a bit later with most of them eaten, complaining about the lack of cheese making it to the bottom layer of chips. Okay, fine, maybe I skimped a bit accidentally. Of note, they were also being pretty rude about it. Problem was, end of busy day, I only had tortilla chip bits left. Not chip dust, but not full chips either. I made a giant portion in a large-sized tray with a ton of cheese, had it in my hand, and explained what I was able to come up with. They were not happy with the broken-up chips and continued on complaining. I had had enough, and without breaking eye contact, threw their free second serving in the trash next to me. Then popped the till, handed the $2.25 back, and said, "Sorry, out of nachos now." The look on their faces was priceless, and they could tell I was not going to discuss the situation further, and walked away muttering to themselves. I hope they're still hungry. You know, there's not enough cheese on these nachos. Makes you want to just reach through the screen and give a backhand. Although I would like to know, why was OP's form of compensation giving them more chips? Like a whole new serving, and not just, alright, hold it here and I'll pour some more cheese on. Our next story is steal a parking spot from a disabled person? Pay up, Karen. Not my 28-year-old male story, but my mom's 58-year-old female. Last week, I went to Costco to run some errands. I have a GI condition which allows me to park in the disabled parking space, so I start the parking in one of the only open spots until I see a van which also has a disability placard hanging from their mirror. I figured since they have a van, they must have a person in need of a wheelchair inside. So I figured, I can walk a few more feet, so they must deserve the spot more than me. I started backing out my car when all of a sudden, enter entitled Karen. As I backed out to give the van space to park, a woman in a pristine Cadillac sedan without a disabled parking placard whips in between my car and the van to park in the disabled parking spot. Both the driver in that van and I were ticked, understandably so, but she was the only one who got out of her car and let the lady have it. I'm usually the pick your own battles type of person, so I backed off, but still watched from a distance. Karen starts going off on her, probably projecting. I couldn't hear everything that was being said, but knew no matter what it was, you couldn't defend her actions. I did notice that on her bumper was a Canadian license plate. We live in Florida. This will come into play a bit later, but at the time, I thought it was funny given the fact that people stereotype Canadians as being overly friendly, which was the polar opposite of this lady's demeanor. So Canada Karen storms off inside to do her shopping or whatever, and the van lady picked up her phone and started calling someone. Probably the police. I'd wanted to tell her that she'd be better off getting an employee because it would take a long time for dispatch to send someone here, since honestly our PD is usually lazy as heck, and Karen would have been gone by then. But very strangely enough, it didn't even take more than 5 minutes for one of the patrol units to show up. Canada Karen didn't even arrive back at her car until a few minutes after the cop showed up. This time, I was outside giving the police officer my side of the story, considering I was a witness. Canada Karen, of course, got into a tiff, and here is how it went. The officer said, "Ma'am, you do understand that 1, you almost hit these 2 vehicles, and 2, you cannot park in a disabled parking spot if you're not authorized or don't have a placard?" Canada Karen replied, "Oh no, you're entirely misreading the situation. These 2 were fighting over the spot, and while they were, I just pulled in. No harm done, right?" Ugh, the gaslighting. I say, no, I was letting her park because she needed the spot more than I did. While I motioned over at van lady's grandson to hopefully give her a hint, he had cerebral palsy and is wheelchair bound. Canada Karen scoffs and says, "Clearly, you don't even look disabled." Ah yes, a typical Karen phrase. If she could park here, then why can't I park here too? The officer says, "Ma'am, I noticed you have Ontario plates. How long have you been here in the States?" Canada Karen starts sweating bullets. She probably thought he was going to question her legal status or something. Well, you see, I moved in with my husband. He's American and, ma'am, this car is registered to you, not your husband, and you haven't answered my question. How long have you lived here in the States? Oh, about a year, she says. Big mistake. The officer says, "Ma'am, you understand that according to Florida law, any non-US citizen living in the state longer than a 6-month period must register their vehicle within 10 days of entering the country, correct?" If Karen's jaw dropped any lower at that moment, it would have fallen off. "I'm afraid I'll have to write you up on a $500 fine for inability to register within 10 days of entry. And additionally, a $250 fine for unauthorized parking in a disability parking space." When they handed Canada Karen her ticket, she snatched it out of his hand and stormed back into her car, still angry but now more embarrassed. Before I left the scene to finally go shopping, I went up to van lady and asked her if she needed any more help. She said she was all right and thanked me. I told her it was amazing how quickly the cops showed up, and then she laid this on me. Apparently she didn't dial 911, she called her son, who was the police chief of our town, who just so happened to be her grandson's, the boy with cerebral palsy, father. As a mom who has a son on the spectrum, I know this more than anything. Heck hath no fury like a parent when their child with special needs is mistreated. Once he heard that this bat crap crazy lady stole a parking spot from his own son who needed that spot and wasn't able to defend himself, he immediately had a squad car sent out to hopefully de-escalate the situation. And our police station was just up the road. Luckily, once Karen left with a $750 a-hole tax in tow, van lady and her grandson were able to park in the spot and continue on with their day, and me with mine. Moral of the story, don't create drama if you don't want karma. Well, I think another very great moral of the story is, if you and or your car have been in a country for far longer than they should have been, do whatever you can to not draw attention to yourself. With how much of a doll Canada Karen is, I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. A user named Kerbin left a comment saying, Okay, why is the administrative victimless infraction twice as much of a penalty as the direct violation against disadvantaged people? I've already thought that the parking fine is needed to go up for a while. The OP responded, if you get into an accident with an unregistered car, your premiums can go up, especially when that accident leads to a claim against your policy, even if you're not at fault. Plus, assuming they're unregistered, they're also uninsured, meaning their policy cannot cover your damages, so technically it's not entirely a victimless crime. Our next story is Wild Karen Screws Her Car Up. This one is short and sweet. I was driving in downtown Denver, Cherry Creek area where all the rich entitled people live. I was driving down a one-way alley looking to merge onto the main street when a wild Karen pulls into the middle lane of Main Street, signaling me with ticked-off hand gestures and obnoxiously honking to hurry up and go because she's turning into the alleyway. I was turning left and I had to pass through incoming right traffic as well as the left. But because this is downtown, it was taking a bit for traffic to clear up so I could hit the pedal. Wild Karen cuts off traffic and decides to turn into this one-way alley going the opposite direction and tries to squeeze her super nice black BMW SUV between me and a Tacoma that was right next to me, scraping up her whole right side of her ride. It was so satisfying seeing her BMW heavily dented and scratched up. I ended up taking longer to leave since I stayed back to make sure the truck didn't have any damage so I can report it to the owner. Luckily, this Tacoma had one of those rugged full metal off-road bumpers that was unscathed by Karen's reckless driving. Luckily, my ride wasn't touched either. This encounter absolutely made my day. I know it's not even nearly the same thing, but it kind of reminds me of some of the actions that people will take on the infamous 11-foot 8-inch bridge, if anybody knows that. They've since raised the bridge a few times over the years, but essentially it's an infamously deceptively short bridge that a lot of semi-trucks or storage trucks like the Penske trucks underestimate and scrape the whole roof off the back of the trailer. Somebody records and puts all of the incidents literally on a YouTube channel, by the way. But what this Karen did kind of reminds me of what some of the drivers in those videos will do, which is when they first breach the bridge and it starts scraping just like the first half foot of the roof of the trailer off, it's like they decide, screw it, I'm committing, and they just gun it. It scrapes the whole roof off of it, or somebody's RV loses the top-mounted air conditioner or whatnot. A user named Gromit left a comment saying, "How would you see the damage on the side of their car that was away from you?" The OP replied, "It squeezed between me and the truck that was parked horizontally on the left side of me, and parked also horizontally while I was stationed vertically, allowing me to sneak a peek." Our next story is, if you don't work here, then tell me where you do work so I can get you fired. Last week or so, I was doing a supply run at the local Costco for our food truck. I still had my hat and hairnet on since I was returning to the truck with a rather small haul. It was a busy day, and I picked what turned out to be the slowest line. And instead of sitting there watching old folks count out change, I decided to grab a hot dog and a soda. It takes about 3 to 4 minutes, in which time the first of 3 old folks only just finished paying, for the next to scan through and take forever. So this lady who's behind where I left my cart for less than 5 minutes just starts going off. "Do you work here? Why would you just go off like that and leave your cart in line?" I just sort of shrug it off, since the line is basically still not moving. She throws in "It must be nice to have all the time in the world to do whatever you want." I thought she must have been joking, surely, and I just missed it, so I try to joke back. "I'm sure you could grab a hot dog too. This is probably the slowest line here." Humor was apparently the exact wrong response, because this woman immediately gets irate and spits, "Does your supervisor know you were holding up the line? What kind of unprofessional jerk just wanders off and leaves their cart sitting in line?" I look at this lady like she's speaking ancient Egyptian. The line hadn't even moved in the time it took me to hit the food court some 10 cart lengths away from the sedentary till. There was still an entire person with a full cart in front who themselves doesn't yet have the room to start unloading onto the checkout belt. Finally, I hit her with "No, I don't work here, lady," to which she flippantly replies, "Of course not. The employees here aren't jerks who would do such a stupid, thoughtless thing and hold up the line for their own selfishness." By now, the cashier has started taking notice, as well as the bagger, since watching this lady making a scene is probably more entertaining than yet another old person counting out exact change. I'm still dumbfounded. Is this lady dense? The line hasn't moved at all. But before I can point the fact out to her, she unloads with a, "Where do you work? I want to tell your boss about how much of a jerk you are in public. Whoever you work for, you're making them look bad." What even the freak? Obviously not if you can't tell who I even work for, regardless of whatever I might have done. Her bullcrap continues, and I just try and ignore it, but it's literally ding near half an hour of this crap as we wait to be checked out. I only have 2 large items in the cart, so it's a quick scan and card to pay, not even 3 minutes next to the 30 that the 2 ahead took. But she crowns off with a, "Why would you do such a jerk thing, huh? Why do you do such inconsiderate things?" This bullcrap has been going on so long that I've basically had the time to shower thought up the perfect clapback, so why not? I lean over the front of her cart, gripping it tightly, put the smuggest, most jerk look on my face that I can twist up, and say, "Just to ruin your day, Karen, I got out of bed today and was just waiting for an opportunity to make you in particular miserable." Before she can process that, I grab my cart and start rolling off, watching her go beet red in the face with pure, unadulterated rage. I basically said exactly what that kind of person feels. I confirmed without a hint of sarcasm in my tone that my goal in life was to make her miserable. But I guess being right didn't satisfy her like she wanted. The cashier and bagger looked like they were both holding back laughter as I looked over my shoulder to watch her silent meltdown, but the only thing she could muster was yelling, "Jerk!" at me, to which I dropped a quick, "Up yours, Karen," and rolled off like a smug jerk, knowing I'd probably be living rent-free in that woman's head for a good while. As someone who works in food service, it was super cathartic to get to clap back, consequence-free. Our next story is customer very rude and angry that we put American cheese on our smash burger because we live in Canada. Hi server Reddit, longtime lurker, first time poster. I never saw myself posting here. I'm the daughter of a family-run restaurant that I've worked in since I was 14 as a dishwasher to now 25 as a manager. I've had everything from verbally abusive Karens, dine and dashes, physical assaults, to people experiencing houselessness doing all sorts of things on our patio, including defecating and stealing food off of people's plates. Maybe I've just had enough of people and I should look for another type of job. Or maybe it was just something about this man. Background: our menu is what I would like to call eclectic. We have a variety of different foods, including a house burger that's a little fancier, a smash burger, chicken burgers, and sandwiches, as well as bigger dinner plates, bowls, and pastas. The list goes on. I live in what can be described as a city with a small town vibe. We're a small restaurant of about 25 tables. We have booths and we also have tables along our wall side, which we use for bigger parties. Our max big party is about 30 people. Anyway, my first customer of my shift yesterday was one that I will remember forever. And for some reason, he was the type of person that really got to me. I wasn't in the greatest mood and was a little ticked off when the daytime server asked me to go to the table. He asked for a manager because he didn't like the cheese on his burger. Although my coworker wasn't technically a manager, she is able to be alone in the building and is capable of handling situations that arise, such as this. But I gave her a break because she had hurt her shoulder the night before and already had asked me to come in early, which I declined, yada yada blah blah. I got my apron on and headed towards the table. He was a single man, bald, probably late 30s, early 40s, and he looked ticked. He got up as I was heading towards him and went towards the bar to awkwardly stand. I came in very friendly. "Hey there, I heard you didn't like your burger." I was going to say something to the extent of, can we make you another one to go? Or we will take care of the bill, but he immediately cuts me off being hostile, ranting about how we shouldn't use American cheese, we're in Canada, because it's trash and disgusting and basically plastic. He was being very dramatic saying, we're Canadians, we like real food, we don't want to eat this fake crap. I try to get a word in and explain that we have many other cheeses and actually only use that cheese for the one burger he ordered, a smash burger, and it's the type of cheese that's always used on a smash burger. I said that it's one of our highest sellers and I understand that it's cheap cheese, but we also have another burger on our menu where you can pick either smoked cheddar or blue cheese, or we also have mixed cheese or Havarti as well as feta and goat cheese, and was in the middle of explaining all this when he cuts me off and says it doesn't matter because his server told him it wasn't processed. She said that conversation never took place. I explained that we were sorry that he wasn't happy and he wouldn't have to pay his bill and he was free to go. This is where he started getting very rude and telling us that wasn't the point and this is why our business is failing. It's not. It was 4 p.m. so he was the only one in there, but that's our slow time and we had tables coming in the next 20 minutes. I told him I'm sorry he was so unhappy about it, but I didn't know what else I could do for him and asked him to leave. He said, there's no one else in here. I'm not bothering anyone. And I said, you're being very rude to me. You're bothering me and I want you to leave. He said, don't take it personally. I just want you to know that you shouldn't have that crap on the menu. I said something to the extent of, I don't know why any of this meant that he had to be so rude to me, and he acknowledged he was being rude. Well, yeah, I am being rude because of the trash cheese. It was almost laughable if it didn't make me so angry. He literally was still saying crap as he backed out of the door, almost tripping on the doormat. So I told him to have a wonderful day, don't trip on your way out. I've been doing this a long time, but sometimes I still can't believe these type of people exist. Not to mention a smash burger is supposed to get American cheese. Either way, it's freaking cheese, man. Get over it. You know, I always thought the whole freedom fries thing was an American kind of concept. Never thought I might hear such a thing from a Canadian about American cheese. Although I have heard personal disgust being expressed about American cheese from a friend in the UK. I myself typically want nothing to do with the plastic American cheese singles, but I gotta be honest, burgers for whatever reason are like the one exception for me. I keep a pack of American singles, A, because it just never goes bad, but also B, just for the rare times that I make a burger, because for some reason it's so good on burgers to me. A user named Butthole Surfer commented, did you tell him American cheese was invented by a Canadian? The OP responded, if only I had known that at the time, it would have been great to add. I highly doubt I'll get anyone else up in arms about it, but it's a fun fact that I'm happy I could pull out if needed. Another user named Marvin Heemeyer's Tank commented, if only there was a description of all the foods you serve and what comes on them. It could either be digital or laminated paper of some sort. Probably would have prevented this. /s. But with that being said, I'm all Karen'd out, but if you're not and you want to hear some more crazy Karen stories, why not check out that video on the left of the screen right now? Or if you missed my latest video, you can check that out on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories, and I'll hold the American cheese, just for all the Canadians out there.